Hi, my name is Mark Caniglio, and I'm the creator of Isadora. Welcome to our first tutorial, which is expressly designed for people that have never used Isadora before. By the time you get to the end of this tutorial, you're going to understand how to import media, how to play it, and how to organize it into cues, or what we call scenes. So let's dive right in. But to start, I think we need to take a tour of the window that you see when you open Isadora, the Isadora user interface. I want to start over here on the left. This area is called the toolbox, and inside there are hundreds of modules, or what we call actors. And each of these modules is kind of like a building block that can do a certain function, like play a movie or send the movie to the video projector, or even just add two numbers together. They all function in different ways, but you can bring these actors out of the toolbox and combine them and hook them up to each other and have them influence each other. That's something you'll learn how to do in a later tutorial, because in this tutorial, Isadora is going to sort of make the actors for you. But just know that it's called the toolbox, and it's where all the actors live, and we'll get into that in a subsequent tutorial. But more important for this tutorial is this horizontal area along the bottom. That's called the scene list. So as I said, Isadora is organized into scenes, and again, you might think of them as cues if you come from the theater world. So basically, each scene, which is represented by here by the one blue box we have called Untitled, each scene is a collection of actors. There might just be one, but there could be hundreds actually, depending on how complicated your patch is. But what they do is it groups together all of those actors to produce a particular video output, or a certain kind of sound, or a way of even controlling light, or receiving input from a sensor so you can interactively manipulate the media. Yeah? And that's all bundled together in a scene. So you can have many of these scenes lined up one after the other, each with its own independent collection of actors that can do different functions. And you can easily, you'll see by the end of this tutorial, transition from one scene to the other. One thing that's important to say here, maybe you're not working in a theater context like a dance piece or a theater piece where you go through the cues in order. It's super easy to actually go in any kind of order you want inside of Isadora. We're going to mostly focus on going through them in order today, but later you'll see that you can go even in a random order if you wish. Okay? So that's the scene list. That'll become more clear as we start importing the media. Over here on the right is the media view. So Isadora can import a number of different kinds of pre-recorded media. We have the video files section, which takes movies of various kinds. The sound sample section, which allows you to actually use Isadora as a kind of sound sampler. Going back to the early days of Isadora, very retro, standard MIDI files. You may have no idea what that is, but if you work with MIDI, these can actually be super useful. Then there's pictures, which are any kind of still picture, which Isadora can import nearly every format of still picture. And finally, 3D models. So if you work with a program like Maya or Blender, you can export the models, bring them into Isadora, render them, and even manipulate them in real time, which can be pretty interesting. We'll spend a whole tutorial on that topic. But what I really want to call your attention to down here is this area. And I'm going to make that bigger for a moment. That's called the Help view. And look what happens as I move my mouse around. It's constantly changing depending on where I'm pointing my mouse. Right now I'm pointing at the scene list that we just talked about. If you read the items there, it tells you the most important things you need to know to work with that area. And this is throughout Isadora. When we get to the actors, you'll see when you point at the actors or their individual inputs or outputs, there's also help for those. So this help view is super incredibly important when you're beginning to learn the program. You may want to do what I did, make it bigger so that you can see what's in there, because that's how you can learn the program without taking the time to crack open a manual, right? Let me insert here, however, if you would like to read our very detailed manual, you can go to the Help menu and choose Isadora Manual, and that'll open the PDF in your browser. There's a lot more detail there, so if you really want to dig into something, open the manual and check it out. Okay? So I'm going to bring this help view back to approximately the size it was before because we need the space up here. Finally, down here along the bottom, this is status information, information about communications in data going in and out of Isadora and about how Isadora is performing. I won't dig into that right now, but in later tutorial we'll take a look at performance and we can use that area of the program more. So that's our guided tour of the Isadora user interface. And we're just about ready to start importing some media, except we need to do one more thing first. We don't have a video projector connected to this computer, or at least I don't because I'm teaching you this tutorial, and maybe you don't have a video projector connected right now either. So nevertheless, we want to be able to see what would be on the video projector when we start working with movie clips. To do that, you want to go to the Output menu and say Show Stages. When I click that, you're going to see a window appears here at the bottom left. And that's kind of a preview. That's what would be on the video projector if one was connected. If you do have a video projector connected, in fact, while you're working here, then what should have just happened is that video projector image, which might have shown the background of your desktop, should have gone black because now Isadora is going to send those images to the video projector. Okay, but we're going to work with the preview, and I want to put it over here to the right because that will keep it out of the way of things we need to see. Yeah? Okay, so now we can actually bring the media in. The most basic way to do that is to go to the File menu and choose Import Media. When I do that, you can see I'm already in a folder where I've prepared a whole bunch of media clips. There's movies and still pictures and 3D models and all the different kinds of files that Isadora understands. I'm going to select the first one and shift-click the last one so we can import them all. So I just said Open, and you can see all of the clips are coming in, and they've all been automatically sorted into the correct area. By the way, we call these headers that go above each section bins, right? They kind of group together media. And so in the video bin, you've got all the movies. In the sound samples bin, you've got the sound samples, the standard MIDI file, etc., right? So it's all imported. That's one way to work. But I'm going to actually go to the Edit menu and undo that. So now we're back to having no media files at all, because probably a more convenient way to bring in media is to open a file folder here. Here you see all the various media clips, yeah? I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to drag all of those files over here to the media view. Notice that rectangle that appears around the media view. It says, I see those files, I'm ready for you to drop them into me, and you let go, and the same thing happens. All of those files are now sorted into the proper bins, yeah? But let's undo one more time, back to the beginning, empty file again, and I'm going to open that tutorial media folder again, and I'm going to click on one specific file called Dancer 2018. And before I bring that in, let me just add one bit to the user interface tour. So I mentioned the scene list, but I didn't really talk about this area. This is the scene editor. That shows you the actors that are inside the currently active scene. We only have one scene called Untitled, but it's blue, so it's active. But there's no actors in there yet. And so what I can do is I can go back and grab that Dancer movie and drag that into the user interface. And look what happens when I pull that into the scene editor. You see a movie player and a projector actor. Those are the first actors you've seen, and they're ready to go. So when I let go of the mouse button, two things are going to happen. It will import that media file, and then the movie player and the projector will start playing it. Okay, so I'm going to let go, and you see as soon as I do, there's the preview of the stage. We see the dancer, and there's the movie player and the projector doing their thing. Now we've seen our first actors, I actually want to take a moment to talk about kind of how they work, just a little bit of conceptual information. I'm going to make some space between these two, yeah? Okay, so information in Isadora travels from left to right, yeah? So things come into the inputs, which are on the left, and then the actor does whatever it does, and it sends the result to the outputs on the right. So if we look here at this actor, you see there's a little circle. That's called a port. That's where you connect things if you want to link actors together. Then there's a box that's the value. Normally you can change this, yeah? And then there's the title of that parameter. That's just a little feedback to tell you a little something about what it does, yeah? So those are the inputs, and then you've got the mirror image at the output. You've got the title, the value box, which normally you don't change because the actor's doing it for you, and then the little port that allows you to connect it to other actors, yeah? So we've got the movie player. It's got some inputs like the speed and these things called play start and play length we'll see in a moment. And it's producing video. And that video is going from the video out through this wire into the projector actor. And the projector actor's job is to show you that video on the display or whatever kind of output you have connected to your computer. Again, we're seeing it on the little preview window, right? To make this clear, I'm going to click on the link between the two actors, and I'm going to hit the delete key. So the wire is gone and we don't see the video anymore. The movie is playing. Look at the little green bar here and that yellow line that's moving along. We see that it's playing. But we don't see the video because the movie player has no way to get that video into the projector. Now if I go to this little port here on the output and I click, and by the way, my hands are now free, you can see that it's just following me around, this red line. Red means that nothing's happening yet. But if I click in the input port on the projector again, I connect the two actors and we can see the dancer dancing for us, yeah? Okay? So we have our movie playing, but I want to look a little bit into these parameters. Now, in this first tutorial, we're not going to look at every parameter because we'd be here for hours. But instead, I just want to touch a few of them so you can see how you can change values, because what I'd like you to do when you finish this tutorial is start playing around with some of the inputs I didn't even tell you about to see what they do. Because the thing I can tell you, it's not going to explode if you do that. Just try stuff once you learn how to change these values, and you'll start to learn how to use the movie player and the projector, yeah? But a good one to start with here is the input that's labeled zoom on the projector. It says 100 right now, yeah? So I'm going to click on that number 100. So you click on the value and notice that the letters turn yellow and that the background changes to a kind of dark blue. That's Isadora telling you, I'm waiting for you to type something, yeah? And so I'm going to type 50, and nothing changed yet because I didn't hit return. It doesn't happen until I hit the return or enter key. But when I hit return, boom, the video is suddenly smaller than it was before. In fact, it's 50% of what it was before because that particular number is a percentage. And you'll see as you get to know Isadora, a lot of numbers are expressed in a percentage because that's an easy concept for all of us to get. We all understand that 50% is half of something and 25% is a quarter, right? So we went from a full-size frame to half, yeah? Now, I want to be able to see that video more clearly, so I'm going to undo that. So I'll go to the edit menu and say undo change value, and now it's back to being full frame. But suffice to say that all of these inputs, you can click in them, type a number or sometimes a text, and you can then hit return, and that will then change the behavior of the actor. But now I want to take a look at two inputs on the movie player, the play start and the play length. So the play start is where the clip is going to start playing. And then the play length is how much of it is going to play, right? This actually allows you to sort of do a quick and dirty edit of the clip to take out some of it because you don't want to have to go back to your editing program to trim it, yeah? So we could type those numbers in, but I want to show you a different way of working. So I'm going to change the play length. I'm going to shorten it so we have a very short loop. So I'm going to click where it says on the little input port, the circle, where it says play length, and I'm going to pull that slider down until it says 2. Okay? So now you can see that this green bar, the bright part, got very tiny. And if you look at the movie, you see that she's doing this nice loop with her arm, moving her hand there like this, right? So we're playing 2% of the movie, yeah? And for those of you who like to work in timecode, because this has come up a lot, One of the ways that you can work with time in Isadora in movies is these percentages. You can also use time code. We'll get into that in a later tutorial, but I'll just show you this much. If you click the movie player, go to the actors menu, and you say set time options and choose use time code, you'll see that all of these values change to time code instead of percentages. Okay? That's just a little tip. I'm going to undo that though, because I want to continue to work with the percentages, yeah? Okay, so we've got this little loop happening with the dancer, yeah? But maybe we want to start that loop later somewhere. So I'm going to now click on the play start and use the slider to move where the beginning is. And you can see, if you look at the actor, that little green portion, yeah, moving around as I do the clip. And I can pick, like, here's a nice part. So now I've just selected this small portion where she's got her arms out and she's making this nice motion with her hand, yeah? So in just a few moments, we were able to kind of trim this clip down and get part of it and play only that part of the clip. That's something we can easily do with the movie player, yeah? So let's say that's it. That's our first scene. We think it's brilliant and we're ready to move on to create our next scene, right? So to do that, we're going to need to insert a new scene. Watch what happens when I click to the right of this scene. Everything goes away. The scene is gray now, meaning it's asleep. It's not using any of the resources of your computer. And the video image is black because nothing's running. No scenes are actually active. And you see this blinking line. It's just like a word processor. That's telling you where are you going to insert the next scene, or if you were pasting scenes, where they would be pasted, yeah? So to insert a new scene, I can go up here to the Scenes menu, and I can say Insert Scene. And now, where that line was, a new empty scene appears. If I go back, you can see that everything that we did with this, the movie of the dancer is still there. You don't have to save these things when you move from scene to scene. They're automatically remembered. But I can easily now go to the empty scene or the scene of the dancer, yeah? So if I wanted to bring in another clip, I could do what I did before. I could take a clip, drag it in, we'd see the movie player and projector, and I would leave it there. But I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to take that back. And in fact, I'm going to undo inserting the scene. I want to show you a different way of doing it. So let's get back to where we were. We've got the dancer dancing, yeah? And the movie I'd like to bring in is this movie called Green Bugs. If I select that clip and drag it down here to the scene list, now you get a very rapidly blinking white line. And that's saying, hey, I'm waiting for you to drop that media and to create a new scene. And when I do drop it, three things are going to happen. It's going to import the media, it's going to create the movie player and the projector, and it's going to start playing them. Yeah? So here we go. I'm going to let go, and we have a new scene called Untitled 1. It's playing the movie. There's the movie player and the projector, and you can see the image down here. Yeah? Okay, so we've got this second scene playing. Super easy, right? And remember, everything we did before is still there. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to take a movie here called Pupil that's of an eye, and I'll drag it over here, release the mount, and now we have a third scene of this eye. But I want to add to that even. I'm going to go over and I'm going to get this still image. Now this is a still image, a photo JPEG picture, and I'm going to drag that in. And look, we have two different actors, well, one different actor. We've got a new actor called the picture player that we've not seen before, and also then a projector. And when I let go, it imports that picture. See, it's right here. And now we see that picture combined with the movie. So this just starts to point out you can actually layer images really easily in Isadora, and we'll spend a whole tutorial learning about how to do that and to composite images. But for now, it's sort of nice image combined together, but it's a bit abstract, and I want to see that eye a bit more clearly, right? So remember the zoom. We used the zoom as an example earlier. I want to show you now how to change values in a third way, which is you click on the value and then you drag the mouse. And you see, it's almost like a slider, right? I can drag the mouse up and down, and I can decide how big I want that eye to be. When I let go, it remembers that value. So again, you click on the value, and then you drag your mouse to up or down. And the thing that's good about this is it's a very fine adjustment. Normally it goes in 1/10%. So it's a super fine way to quickly change the value. Let's make a couple of other adjustments with this. Let's say I don't want it in the center. I'd like it to be more at the top left. Let's use the horizontal position input of the projector. I'm going to slide it over to the left. And then I'll use the vertical position input to move it up. So now I've got that eye floating up there in the corner, and you can see a bit more of this kind of desert background, yeah? So clicking and dragging in a value is probably the fastest way to edit values in Isadora, and you'll find out you'll start using it immediately because it's just so much faster, and it also allows you to make a very fine adjustment. Okay, so we've got our 3 scenes, right? How do we make use of them? Well, maybe the first thing to do, because you should understand how to do it, is how to rename scenes. We probably don't need to do it for 3, but if we had 100, you'd want to name them so you know where you are in your Isadora patch. So if I double click the first scene, click, click, you see it turns into a text box. So I'm going to just call this Dancer and hit return. And now that's the name of the scene. I can do that with all 3. Click, click, bugs, click, click, eye, desert. Okay? So I guess you can kind of already see the scene organization because I'm clicking around and recalling everything that I did in those scenes, right? But sometimes when you're doing a more traditional piece like a theater or dance piece where you go through the cues in order, it's nice to have a go button. That's how we often work in the theater anyway. There's a light board, let's say, and there's usually a big green button that says go. That's how you get from one scene in the light board to the next. We also have that in Isadora, but since we don't have a big green button, we use the biggest button on the keyboard, which is the space bar. So if I'm in the first scene and I hit the space bar, I immediately cut to the video of the second scene. And I hit the space bar again, and now we're in the third scene, right? So you actually have this really easy way to get through the scenes using the space bar if you want to go in order. As I said, you don't have to go in order. There are ways to jump around to any scene you want. You'll learn more about that later. But the last thing I want to show you is that it's also really easy to create a transition between scenes, a dissolve. You may have noticed down here where it says 0 SEC, which is short for seconds. So this is the dissolve time from the scene you're in into the next scene. So this is telling you how long it's going to take to go in from the scene called Dancer to the scene called Bugs. I'm going to click on that. It turns yellow and has a blue background, just like the actors. It says, I'm waiting for you to type. You hit 3 and return. And now when I hit the space bar, you see there's a nice 3-second cross dissolve into the bugs, yeah? Let's do the same thing now from the bugs into the eye, and I'll set it to 1 second, so faster. Quick dissolve there, okay? And maybe just to close this out, I want to add one more scene. Now I could go to the scenes menu to add it, but if I click over here and I've got the insertion point, you can always right click in Isadora's user interface and it brings up something called a contextual menu. This is a menu that shows you options that are appropriate for the area that you just clicked on if you right click, yeah? And so one of the options is insert scene. So I choose that and I've got a blank scene. And I'm actually going to call that blackout. If I go back to the eye scene and I type in now a 10-second dissolve, we're going to do a transition of 10 seconds into a scene that has nothing in it. So if I start that, you're going to see that basically the image fades out because there's no video in the last scene. So it fades to black, right? And done. So, a very dramatic ending for that first tutorial, a grand fade out, yeah? Let's think about what we learned. During the tour of the user interface, you got to know it and you got to see, most importantly, the help view. If you don't know what something does in Isadora, point the mouse at it, and very often you're going to see information about it in the help view. We learned how to import media in a few different ways and how to play it. And then we learned how to organize that media into scenes and to transition from one scene to the next. Now, we touched on changing the inputs to actors, how to change them, to type them, to use the slider, or to use the mouse by clicking and dragging, yeah? The next thing you should do when you turn off this video is to start playing with those. Again, it's not going to explode. You're not going to break anything. But if you start playing with those values, you'll immediately learn what they do because you'll see it, right? And then you start to get deeper into Isadora and you start to see what's possible, yeah? So you're in a good place. You can actually start using Isadora now for some simple tasks. In the next tutorials, we'll learn about how to composite video or to bring live video in from a camera or even take interactive input from the outside world, yeah? But for now, just dig in, have some fun, and try playing around with those actors and seeing what you can do. See you next time.